Hello, David.
Many thanks, Jake, for accepting my invitation to answer the five good or God questions. Before diving into the questions, I will try to present you briefly. Don't hesitate to correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Um, you are the 16th generation disciple of Wudang Feng Pai, which
Mhm.
is the Daoist martial arts lineage located in the Wudang Mountain in China. You are originally from the USA. You first went to China at 20 years old in 2010. Please, people, don't calculate the age now.
This is
uh,
confusing with the beard.
yeah. So you went to China in order to study martial arts at the Wudang Daoist Traditional Kung Fu Academy, and
Mhm.
you're still living around there. Now we can say you are a Daoist or Kung Fu instructor. I don't know if we could say a master.
I typically wouldn't use the title,
Yeah. All
no.
right. Okay.
I like the term like a Samfeng Pai disciple or inheritor, because that's
Okay.
part of my lineage. But
Okay.
I don't claim any title besides that.
All right. Perfect. As a good Taoist, you don't like the titles.
Team of names, you've done your homework.
Yeah. So, and your hope is to bring the arts of Wudang Mountain to as many people as possible around the world, I think. Finally, as you are currently living in China, we have like 20 hours of time difference because I'm living in Toronto right now.
Hmm.
I'm starting the day now. It's 8 a.m. and you are finishing the same day. I'm just currently starting.
Right,
So,
right, right.
my first important question is, could you please tell me if this day is worth living it? Because if you say no, I will just come back to sleep and after this interview and wait for the next day to come.
Oh, okay, okay. No, it's a very good time. You're right. We're exactly like in our terms we would say we're like exactly yin and yang. You know, you're early
Yeah,
morning, I'm late night,
yeah,
exact opposites. But it's really nice that we can connect. So yeah, thank you for having me today, Dave. It's really interesting questions. I think there's a lot to go into here. It's very
yeah.
cool.
Thank you, Jake. Let's go into the questions.
All right, let's do it.
First question, does life has a meaning?
So you go right into the deep end right at the beginning, which is very nice. Um, this is a big question for us, and I think yes. Like short answer, of course, life has meaning. What that meaning is something that we all have to find. Like you said, I'm here in Wudang training martial arts. I discovered Taoism when I arrived here 14 years ago. Um, I didn't know anything about it. I came here just to study martial arts. And I was asking myself some of these same questions, actually, because I grew up in America, yeah, in the Midwest, and not really a religious background, whereas where you find a lot of the answers to these kinds of questions.
Yeah,
I mean, the my state, my home area, the environment is very religious. We're in what you call the Bible Belt of
yeah.
America.
Okay.
So I was definitely initiated to like all of the different religions. I think I attended every church in my hometown. Um,
It's very
I
evangelical, right?
evangelical to a degree. I think in my area it's more Christian, Methodist, Lutheran. But yeah, in this kind of
Okay,
like traditional sense, yes. Yeah,
okay.
very traditional.
So you didn't find the meaning in these religions?
I mean, this is the question, right? Because I looked for it all the time, and I'm a very analytical person. I think like I really
Hmm.
like to ask questions and poke holes. So when you sent me these questions, I'm like, oh, this is very different. This is very nice because these are the kind of questions that I think I would kind of daydream about when I was a little kid,
Hmm.
and that kind of brought me to different churches and different religions and different philosophies. But I had no idea of what I was getting into when I came here. I really came here for health. I came here for martial arts and training. And I was like, this will be a good chance to learn something.
Yeah.
Right. And that introduced me to Taoism here. I think that in the end, we all do have a purpose. We all do have a meaning. sometimes we have to find what that is. We have to discover that and kind of create that even, right?
Okay. You don't think we have like every human being has the same common meaning, or is it
Mm.
all is specific to each human, or for you there is something in common?
I think that yeah, this is a good better way to ask this question, because is there a common thread that we all share, right?
Mhm.
Um, because we always want to say, like, what is the purpose of life? What is the meaning of life? And something we can all do, right? I think that generally the meaning is the purpose you have to figure out on your own. The theme of it, though, I believe is the same for everybody, is that the only like realistic purpose we can have is to benefit others, in some way, to promote growth. Um, I think that your purpose in life should be to help other people find their purpose in a way. At least that's kind of what I put on myself. I think that that's the real goal. Like when we ask, like, what's your goal in life, and people say money or house or family or all this stuff, what they're really saying is they want the next generation, their children, their family to be taken care of. So they're talking about positivity. They're just talking about growth. I think that if we wanted to, like, quickly answer the question, what is the purpose of life? I think the purpose of life is to grow. And whatever we can do to facilitate that, that can be helpful to the world. Full stop.
Thank you, Jake. I think I will come back to your answer, maybe the third question concerning the afterlife, but I'm
Oh, okay.
keeping that in mind.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah. So now, second question.
Mhm.
God for you is?
In our practice, I can say, like, Taoism. In Taoism, there isn't a anthropomorphic God in this sense, and it's not necessarily even atheist. Um, it's that the question isn't asked because it's not existential to our life in a way, right? So I would say God, this term, is something, especially in the West, is something that's, an ideal or an archetype of something that people strive to be, or maybe an answer to questions that can't be left open ended. For Taoism, I can say a lot of people think Taoist religion or Taoist philosophy. Like, what is it? Is it one or the other? And I think that the philosophy is kind of the root of it, and the religion is the thing that we place on top of that. It's kind of like the traditions and the rituals of this ideal.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think God is kind of a framework for us to put those wishes, those ideals, those archetypes that we strive for. Because in the sense here, we don't look at a God, we look at nature. So we look at 自然, which means, like, this idea of something as it is, so like it's kind of experiencing itself in that way.
Okay.
So I think God for me would be, an example, just a series of metaphors that we're trying to put into action. But I also kind of lose or shed the idea of God. This terminology isn't really in my practice today,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Third question about the afterlife. Is it a stop or an again?
I don't know. I don't think anyone can know. This is a topic, like, I could spend a lot of time talking about, because this is maybe the biggest inspiration for
Mhm,
everything.
mhm,
There was a quote that I read a long time ago in my practice that was, you know, if we're always striving for health, we're always striving for long life, we're always striving for this kind of, like, better quality of existence, we're not really practicing life. We're just like being afraid of death. And this kind of fear of death, or like if you're talking connecting to the last question, you talk about God and you talk about God fearing individuals historically. That's almost like it's like a character trait, like a positive thing, because that fear implies that you have, you know, anxiety about life. It means you want to accomplish something. It kind of motivates you in a way. Um, I would say that that's definitely a root of me searching. I think of a lot of people searching is that anxiety about what does happen after death.
Mhm.
Today, I take note from a lot of the philosophers in like the Daoist practice. One in particular is Zhuangzi, and this character is very interesting because he kind of makes you realize that things are not opposite, that they complement each other. So, you know, in the Tao Te Ching and some of the classic texts, we say like you can't experience right without having wrong. You can't look left without experiencing right. You know, you can't have long without short, beauty without ugly, and life without death. So to me, I think I see that as part of a sequence, not necessarily in reincarnation or resurrection, these kinds of things. While that does come up in traditions and some ritual, I think for me that for existence to happen, non-existence has to happen. And we can't really understand that. So we should just enjoy the time we have here.
Okay. Okay.
Like
Understood.
I think I don't think it's the end,
Yeah.
but I think that whatever it is, it's like if we were reincarnated as something else, for example,
Mm.
it would be such a different thing. There would be no way to connect it anyway.
Yeah.
So we have to have that kind of emptiness in order to have this existence now.
All
So I
right.
think it's part of a cycle.
Okay. And just coming
It's
back to
very
the
short,
two.
but a big
No, no,
answer,
it's
big question.
perfect. It's perfect. But I was interested because as I told you at the end of the first question, there was something that I wanted to ask you.
Hmm.
You told me that the purpose of life is like helping other people
Growth,
to find their
right?
purpose and to help them grow, actually.
Mhm.
What for at the end?
I
And
mean,
that's why
this
I
is
was asking
the
the afterlife as well.
yeah, okay, okay. Now, I think that this is a big this is actually really important. That's a good question because I think that what happens is people strive for a why because they need a purpose to continue on, right? And I don't know. I think that, you know, in some of the classical texts, you say something like this character, this legendary person was born, and it was so good for society, and it was so beneficial. And the classic philosopher says, no, they were born because they had to be, like they were a product of their environment, and it's they had to be here, and then when it was their time to go, they had to leave. And it's nothing that should be taken joy in. It's nothing that should be mourned. It's just part of existence. Now, why should we promote growth? Why should we benefit life if there's no ultimate supreme purpose? Is that kind of like this? Um, I mean, I don't think that we need a reason. You know, I think that's one of the beauties of it is that you don't need a reason to have uh, goals or thinking. You know, if you took away all of your tasks today, all of your jobs, all of your achievements, all of your aspirations, you would still be a good person. You would still do the things you want to do.
Mhm.
And sometimes I think we get lost in the process and forget that this is just a method. This is not the whole thing,
Yeah.
you know. So
Okay.
I think that why promote growth because that's all that life is. That's the
Okay.
simplest like generality that I can give for what is the purpose of life.
Mhm.
Life is to grow, and that's what is soft. That's what is healthy. That's what is, you know, bursting with energy. And the things that are stiff and rigid and stuck in their ways, those are the things that die. And so if we want to be part of the life cycle, we have to promote positive growth and things that are, you know, active and things that are, you know, promoting each other. Because anything else is just negativity, you know.
Mhm.
And that's a pretty general kind of way to approach the question, but I think that's why it's useful because it's the only thing we can say for sure. Doesn't matter where you're coming from, what practice, what ethnicity, what culture, what religion.
Yeah,
Everyone in the human existence, good or bad, thinks that they're doing good. They want to do good,
yeah.
you know. And their interpretation of good might be different, but that's the unique thread that we all share. So we should aspire to that, and that's in itself that's a purpose.
Beautiful answer. Thank you, Jake.
Well, thank you for the question. It's really cool.
Now the two last questions that are quite easier, maybe. Fourth question: a spiritual character who inspired you.
Again, I will keep it safe, and I will stick with some of the Taoist classics.
Okay.
Um, the classical text of Taoism is, excuse me, is the Tao Te Ching, which is
Mhm.
written by Lao Tzu, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's written. The title of the book is written as the author's name. He's like the legendary character, kind of the cornerstone of the practices and the philosophies. Later, there's a character called Zhuangzi, and he's kind of my like philosophical idol. It's one of those texts that they're both very short. The Tao Te Ching and the Zhuangzi are very short, and every time you read it, you come away with like a different perspective. And it's one of those things that no matter how many times I look at it, it's just it kind of just snaps you into reality.
Yeah.
But I think I take a lot from those characters, especially Zhuangzi. I really like his way with words and like the kind of humor that is in the philosophy. Kind of like the
Uh,
traditional koan where you're saying something
Yeah.
to like wake somebody up from like the some kind of bias that they might have.
And you can read it in the original Chinese, I think. So it's
I
even
have like
more deep,
a
no?
I have like bilingual books. My reading
Okay.
Chinese is not quite that high level because that's like a ancient script and it's very
Yeah.
difficult even for Chinese people.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
slowly, you know, that's one of the goals to continue to study and cultivate.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Last question. Fifth
Mhm.
question: a book and or a movie to recommend to your best friend who may be quite lost in these questions.
No, this is harder for me actually. I grew up with
Okay.
movies and books, and I read a lot of science fiction. I read a lot of fantasy. I read a lot of course, like the Taoist classical texts. There's a lot of good authors, um, and I grew up on movies even before that. So I know I really enjoy watching and kind of digesting different things, especially anything that has world building. So things that
Hmm.
have you know, like a very like in science fiction, you have very post-apocalyptic worlds where they take an idea and try to create a story around that. And I really enjoy thinking about things like abstractly and trying to piece together these kind of ideas. So it's very hard to pick a few.
Hmm.
I would say just in general, like just read, just watch more. There's so much availability today. Like if you want to get into Taoist practices, the Tao Te Ching, for example, is the most translated book in the world. There are so many versions of it. Um, it's
More than the Bible? I don't think so. No?
it's I think it has overtaken because the thing
Yes.
is maybe not in like mass amount,
Yeah.
but as far as like different versions of because
Oh
it's
yeah.
only it's 81 chapters, but each
Yeah.
chapter is maybe only a paragraph.
Yeah.
And so it's only got like 5,000 characters in the whole
Yeah. It's
book.
very short. Yeah.
It's very short. You can read it in an afternoon. And a lot of people literally recite it every morning in
Hmm.
Chinese. It's like part of a
Okay.
practice.
Yeah.
And the text is nothing religious. It's all just um, kind of like understanding the world and then practical advice.
Yeah.
And for that reason alone, like you can get so many different versions in different languages. And I recommend to read more because every time you translate that text, it takes an abstract idea and you have to kind of perceive it with your own understanding. And then people translate that and you get different translations.
Mhm.
And so it's very interesting to kind of go into each person's perspective and see what they understand. And so Dao De Jing is like definitely a great recommendation. I'm a
Would
big
you?
fan of science fantasy as
Yeah.
well, so always push
Okay.
that.
Would you recommend a specific translation of the Dao De Jing, a specific translator in English, or?
There's one that I have that's called the Book of Tao and Te. So it's
Okay.
spelled with the T instead of the D. And it's excuse me.
Drink a tea.
Have like a leaf. Hold
Oh, yeah, no worries.
on. Excuse me. Um, Let me say it again. So the version that I prefer is the Book of Dao and Te, which is by a Chinese author, Gu Zhengkun. I can spell it and send it to you after.
Yeah.
There's some digital versions available online. The print version is very nice though because it has the Chinese, it has the pinyin, which is the phonetic spelling of Chinese, and
Yeah.
then it has the English next to it as well.
Okay.
Um, and that's very nice if you're not just looking at the translation from a native speaker, but you're also able to kind of if you're studying Chinese, you can follow
Yeah.
along a little bit how
And
it's
you can find
understood.
other translation yourself.
There's many, many. Yeah. A quick Google search, you'll find hundreds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. The end of the interview. So,
Yeah.
do you want to add anything more in this interview, or you think you have like you have said every answer you wanted to say, or?
I mean, to be honest, these are really big questions. Um, I like being able to just cut through it and just say like kind
Yeah,
of the bullet points, as it were. But I do think that each one of these questions it can't really be answered. I think that a channel like yours, the good God questions, this idea, I like uh, this concept, and I really support this idea because I think that what you're doing is really nice to go and have more of these conversations. Because I don't think that these questions necessarily will be answered. Um, I think that's the point of them, though,
yeah.
is that.
If the so, yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say if the questions had definitive answers, I wouldn't have created this channel, I think.
Exactly. There's a great quote. One more recommendation with reading the Tao Te Ching and then reading the Zhuangzi, because in the Zhuangzi he has a passage that says, if if something was just so, we would never debate about it being just so, because it would be so obvious to each of us that there'd be no room for debate. And so he uses that to prove that even though we look at something and it might, be one thing we agree upon, everyone has a different perception of that thing. And everything is fluid, everything is being experienced in the moment. And I think that's really beautiful. Like, I think that trying to standardize something is the beginning of a deviation from what we call like the natural way. So continue the
Thanks for
conversation and
this is
continue
a
to learn more.
very yeah, it's a very Daoist answer, and I really like it.
That's
The
cool. That's
fluid.
cool. So yeah, yeah. I think each one of these we go into a lot more detail, but I think it's really cool, and I think yeah, thank you for the chance to share.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you, all the people that are listening to this video, the first video in English. I will add the subtitles. Don't worry for the French people.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
And yeah, thank you again, Jake. And
Of course. Thank you.
have a good night for you.
You have a good day.
Thank you, Jake. Bye.
Okay.